Base jumping is an extreme sport where those doing it jump from a fixed structure such as a building, bridge or a cliff, then deploy a parachute to land safely. Unlike skydiving performed from a lower altitude, there's little room for error. The high risk and precision involved make it both thrilling and dangerous, and for that reason, the United States National Park Service has mostly banned the sport throughout their parks. The infamous El Capitan, a 3,000-foot granite monolith in Yosemite National Park, was, and occasionally still is, despite being banned, irresistible to base jumpers. Although legal in the park in the 1980s, restrictions on when people could jump and the number of jumps per day were routinely violated, so it was banned outright. Rangers will arrest anyone caught jumping, seize their equipment, and put them in jail. Fines run as high as $5,000. Needless to say, this isn't popular among base jumping enthusiasts and has led to several protests, one of which in 1999 led to 2 separate incidents that resulted in what I'm calling the channel's first ever double Darwin Award. On the 9th of June 1999, 28-year-old Frank Gamboli stood atop the summit of El Capitan, the park's most infamous peak. Yosemite Valley lay more than 3,000 feet below, sliced by the Merced River. After pulling a stone from his pocket and dropping it to follow its trajectory, calculating its rate of fall against the wind, Gamboli would haul himself over the edge. Accelerating to a heart-stopping 120 miles per hour, he deployed his chute around 1,500 feet from the valley floor and landed safely. Of course, he had just broken the rules, and park rangers watching were making their way to arrest him. However, instead of allowing himself to be caught, Gamboli dropped his chute, smiled at the rangers, then sprinted into the woods toward the Merced River. Approaching the riverbank, he dumped his gear, flipped off the rangers, and jumped in to escape. Unfortunately, he had underestimated the currents. The force of the river, compounded by the swirl of white water, sucked him under after hitting the rapids. His body lay submerged in the icy water until being found just 360 yards from where he had dived in 1 month later. However, you'd be wrong if you thought this was where the story ended. In protest for what many in the base jumping community saw as needless, heavy-handed tactics that led to the death of Gamboli, a protest was organized at El Capitan on Friday, the 22nd of October, 1999. His mother joined more than 150 people, including friends and families of the 5 people who intended to base jump from the summit of El Capitan in what was supposed to be a carefully staged demonstration that base jumping from El Capitan was safe. The jumpers, accompanied by rangers at the top of the peak, agreed to land in the designated area, be arrested and forfeit their equipment, and pursue their opposition to the ban in court. Among the 5 who intended to jump was 60-year-old veteran base jumper Jan Davis. To prevent confiscation of her own gear when she landed, she had borrowed someone else's. Whilst the first 3 jumpers leapt without a hitch, going second to last was Jan. Stepping up, she leapt. However, when the time came to deploy her parachute, she couldn't find the ripcord. Unlike hers, which was located on her back, the parachute she had borrowed had the ripcord on the leg. Never finding it, her body hit the cliff base, sending a booming echo off the rock that thundered across the valley. In the aftermath of her death, base jump gear manufacturer Martin Tilley said that Jan would have jumped without 100% security with her equipment is outrageous. Know your equipment. That's a given in base jumping. This is Instagram influencer 27-year-old Beatriz Tavares de Silva Faria and 37-year-old Arlene Tamara Moreira de Amorim. On the 29th of September 2024, they attended a yacht party at a popular surf beach near Devil's Throat off the coast of Sao Paulo, Brazil, with a host of fellow influencers. This pic was one of many taken on the yacht before what would evidently turn out to be the second double Darwin Award of today's video, but not the last. When the booze ran dry and the party was over, it was time to head back to shore. It was here the partygoers split into 2 separate groups, taking 2 separate speedboats to shore. However, 27-year-old Beatriz and 37-year-old Arlene both refused to wear a life jacket. Local police commissioner Marcus Alexandre Afino later said, based on testimony by the boat's captain, The two women refused to wear a life jacket because they got in the way of their tanning. Unfortunately for the ladies though, the area, known for its choppy water and strong current, caused the overcrowded speedboat to capsize, throwing all 7 occupants into the water. The captain and the 4 others, all wearing their life jackets, were rescued. According to the New York Post, the Brazil maritime firefighters recovered the body of Beatriz Tavares de Silva Faria after drifting out to sea, while the body of Tamara Moreira de Amorim, who could not swim, washed ashore 1 week later. The small town of Huron in Fresno County, California, has a population of just 7,000 residents, and it's the kind of place that would seldom attract attention beyond county lines. However, when one man had burglary in his heart, a noteworthy incident took place that would briefly elevate the town to the national spotlight. Now, a quick recap for those new to the series. The Darwin Award is a satirical prize awarded to those who meet their demise in a rather absurd or reckless manner, suggesting they strengthened the human gene pool by removing themselves from it. Basically, a tongue-in-cheek play on Charles Darwin's theory of evolution. According to the Fresno County Sheriff's Office, 19-year-old Cody Caldwell was unknown to them and was without a criminal record. But according to an ABC article, many locals knew him as the guy who would often come door-knocking, asking if they wanted to buy things like stereos and small air conditioning units. On Friday, the 27th of November 2015, Cody Caldwell apparently had burglary in his heart and had a rather unorthodox plan to go about it. As luck would have it, the owner of the house that he had targeted was away for the night. The situation was about to bring new meaning to the saying, "The lights are on, but nobody's home." Rather than breaking a window and getting in the easy way, he climbed onto the roof, approached the chimney and climbed on down. However, he no doubt had instant regret upon getting stuck halfway down. As uncomfortable as it must have been, his real troubles were yet to come. It was the following morning that the homeowner, referred to only as the victim in all the reports I read, arrived back at the house, unaware there was an amateur stereo salesman stuck up his chimney. Instead of admitting defeat and calling out for help, the young burglar remained silent. Perhaps this would have been okay had it been summer and no need for fire, but in late November, it was not. Obviously, feeling a bit cold, the owner lit the fire, which, to be fair, was a pretty reasonable thing to do. It's November, it's cold, and no one expects they're heating up an intruder. An officer with the Fresno County Sheriff's Office told a CBS affiliate that the homeowner, after lighting his fire, had heard somebody screaming for help from inside the chimney. He put the fire out and called the authorities. Using drills and chisels, the fire department smashed the chimney to get the burglar out. Although he had been responsive when the fire department had arrived, by the time he had been freed, the would-be burglar had died. An autopsy the next day concluded that 19-year-old Cody Caldwell had died from smoke inhalation and burns. In a strange twist, in the days following the incident, deputies discovered that the homeowner himself was also wanted by law enforcement, having an outstanding warrant for a misdemeanor DUI and possession of illegal substances. He was issued with a citation. At this point, one could probably be forgiven for wondering if the invention of the inverted roller coaster was purely to provide stories for the Silliest Ways People Died series, this being the 3rd time one is featured in one of my Darwin Award videos. On the 19th of June 2024, 38-year-old Antonaro Nelson of Wilmington visited Kings Island Amusement Park. Kings Island Amusement Park opened in 1972, is 364 acres in size and is located 24 miles northeast of Cincinnati in Mason, Ohio. The park has 49 attractions, including 16 roller coasters, one of which will play the villain in this story, the Banshee. With a top speed of 68 miles per hour, it features a 150-foot drop and a ride time of 2 minutes and 40 seconds. Shortly after 7:45 p.m., Antonaro Nelson rode the Banshee roller coaster. Theme parks across the world encourage guests, and in some cases, strictly enforce no loose items in their pockets that could come free and collide with other riders. However, such rules are often not followed. On a more personal note, I rode a roller coaster here in Auckland last week, And it occurred to me mid-ride that I was also one of those people I speak of who leaves their phone and keys in their pocket. Anyway, while riding the Banshee, the forces generated by the coaster caused Antonore's keys to fall from his pocket and land on the ground below. According to park employees and a witness, after completing the ride, he approached the staff requesting them to retrieve his keys. However, for safety reasons, he was told they could, but at the end of the day, he wanted the keys now, and it's what he did next where he and I would probably differ. Park visitor Aaron West was waiting in line to ride the Banshee and witness to the conversation.
He had kind of made a small commotion by jumping in front of people without even asking. They couldn't do anything because the ride was obviously in operation. And so once he heard that, he kind of left the line. Thought he was going to go to Lost and Found, but we didn't think that he would.
It was shortly after this that Antonore Nelson was reported to have climbed 2 fences into the restricted area directly under the path of the Banshee roller coaster. Somehow oblivious to its presence, he was struck in the head by a fully loaded train as it passed above. A park employee told a TV station that the train, which was at the fastest point, was most likely doing 68 miles per hour when it hit him. Lying in critical condition, the 38-year-old was taken to UC Medical Center in Cincinnati. However, he died of his injuries 2 days after the accident. On the 1st of December 2018, 28-year-old Beth Ann Roper, an employee of the Welsh Refugee Council and the chairwoman of the Cardiff Young Socialists, enjoyed a day out shopping with friends in the English city of Bath, around 96 miles southwest of London. When the day was over, she and a friend boarded a train to head back home. The train from Bath to Penarth in the south of Wales was operated by Great Western Railway. The carriage they were in was a 1970s-built MK3 coach. A feature of this was the drop-light windows that could be opened so passengers could use the outside door handle at a station. One downside of this space-age technology was that nothing was stopping a drunk person from sticking their head out while the train was moving. Nothing except the sticker above the window advising people not to. Now, as we have learned before in the series, the best decisions are not always made after having a few drinks, and, according to an article in the Guardian newspaper, Miss Roper, at the time of boarding the train, had had enough to be twice the drink-drive limit. Minutes after departing Bath station, her friend opened a window and poked her head out. Thankfully, after fulfilling her apparent need for fresh air, she pulled her head back in and no harm was done. Tragically though, Miss Roper decided she'd do the same thing. Having ignored the warning sign, Beth Ann Roper, with her head out the window, was on a collision course with destiny. That destiny, though, was trackside vegetation. Travelling at a reported 75 miles, or 120 kilometers per hour, she was struck in the head by the branch of an ash tree that had fallen toward the tracks. After falling back inside the train, she was given medical assistance but was pronounced dead at the next station. Who was to blame for the accident, though, was apparently not so simple. Despite an inquest jury returning a narrative verdict, stating Beth Ann had boarded the train under the influence of alcohol, and despite a warning sign had leaned out the window, the Railway Investigation Board, a government agency responsible for investigating railway accidents in the UK, said the warning sign above the drop-light window met industry standards, but didn't adequately convey the level of risk. Investigators said, "Caution, do not lean out of window when train is moving," was not a sufficient deterrent. They went on to say, the use of the word caution suggested that leaning out the window could be done safely if care was taken, and that the background should have been red, not yellow. Let me know what you think about that. I know from past videos there's been strong opinions on whether or not a sign is to blame for the death of a rule breaker. Most of us are likely guilty of having made some questionable choices as to where we sleep, having had a few too many drinks after a night on the town. But most of us will walk away with little more than a hangover and an unwanted itch. However, my fellow New Zealander, 35-year-old math teacher Scott Williams, lost his life after what could only be described as a very, very poor choice of place to sleep. Described as a great role model by another teacher at his school, Mr. Williams had moved from New Zealand to the UK in the year 2000 and, except for a short break, had been a teacher there ever since. On a night in July 2009, Scott and his brother Tony were out drinking, hopping between several different pubs. However, when the night was over and it was time to find a place to sleep, the 35-year-old teacher would make a move that most of us probably wouldn't. Finding an industrial-sized rubbish bin, he hopped inside to take a nap. As it would turn out, Scott wasn't the only one to attempt a nap in a rubbish bin that night. In a separate incident, two homeless men had a close call when workers heard them shout as they were scooped up into the truck, and thankfully no harm came of them. Sadly for Scott though, he had no such luck. Sussex police investigating the case indicated it appeared Mr. Williams climbed into a wheelie bin, fell asleep, and was scooped up by the rubbish truck, where he was crushed to death by the compactor. In the aftermath of the 35-year-old math teacher's death, his brother Tony went on the offensive. Something needs to be done about these types of bins. I would like councils to introduce new safety measures to stop people being killed. A spokesman for the Brighton City Council would later say, "It's difficult to protect people from every potential accident, particularly when alcohol is involved." On a more positive tone though, a former colleague of Scott's, Jacqueline Glazerman, said of him, "He was a fantastic teacher and an inspiration to children." On the 21st of January 2011, 26-year-old Michael Smith was sentenced to 4 years in prison, followed by 11 years probation, and permanently lost his license after being convicted of vehicular homicide for his involvement in the death of his 18-year-old friend, Cameron Beeberl. Now, the humble shopping cart, a reliable workhorse for groceries and snacks, although not built for adventure, on occasion, it becomes more than just a shopping aid, and, as demonstrated in this story, when used incorrectly, can go from aisle 4 to headline news. On the 8th of March 2008, Cameron and Michael, inspired by the movie Jackass according to Cameron's father, decided on a stunt similar to one they had done before. Cameron would climb into a shopping cart, hold the back of Michael's Cadillac Escalade, while being towed around the car park of an apartment complex on University Boulevard in Orange County, Florida. However, on execution, according to the Orlando Sentinel, at a speed of around 42 miles or 62 kilometers per hour, they unceremoniously hit a speed bump. Sent skyward, Cameron received fatal injuries after hitting his head on the pavement. In the aftermath of the teenager's death, his father told the Sentinel that his son had been watching Jackass and he thinks the show absolutely had something to do with the accident. Pranking on YouTube became popular in the early 2010s. Driven by suspense, humor, and shock value, prank videos involving scares, public disruptions, and social experiments quickly went viral on YouTube and other social media. Viewers were taken in by the unpredictable reactions and the entertainment value these videos offered. However, as creators sought to outdo one another and competition grew, the stunts got riskier and often crossed ethical boundaries, sometimes leading to lawsuits, jail, and even death. Minnesota couple 22-year-old Pedro Ruiz and 19-year-old Mona Lisa Perez had a small YouTube channel. Featuring a mix of pranks, challenges, and everyday moments, they had dreams of viral success. Although making mostly playful content, Pedro had an idea for a prank that he was convinced would get them noticed, and, as it would turn out, he wasn't wrong.
The channel is going to consist of a lot of crazy stuff. I'm not into doing all the by the law. I mean, I will if I have to, but my thing is crazy. I'm borderline crazy stuff. I love doing crazy stuff just so you don't have to.
He planned to take an encyclopedia, hold it to his chest, and Mona Lisa would take a handgun and shoot the book at point blank, all while recording for YouTube. His theory was that the denseness of the book would save him. Dense was a factor in the stunt. Unfortunately, it wasn't the book. Their choice of weapon was the Desert Eagle handgun. Nicknamed the Deagle, it's a single-action, gas-operated semi-automatic pistol and one of the most powerful on the market. Here is the result from a news channel that reenacted the event after. The 26th of June 2017 was to be the day of the stunt. A nervous Mona Lisa posted online, "Me and Pedro are probably going to shoot one of the most dangerous videos ever. His idea, not mine." According to a BBC article, in front of more than 30 onlookers at a range of just 1 foot, she fired the bullet, it hit the book, went straight through and into Pedro's chest. Down for the count, emergency services were called, but he was tragically pronounced dead on the scene. For her part in the stunt, Perez pleaded guilty to second-degree manslaughter and was sentenced to 180 days in prison. A young Venus boater, having completed his national service in the South African military in 1989, where he had served in the Angola War, returned home to finish his studies. To help pay for it, he began leading hunting safari tours for wealthy tourists, thus creating Venus Boater Big Game Safaris. Fast forward to 2017, according to a BBC article, he specialised in hunting lions and leopards assisted by dogs. Looking at his website, showed he hunted crocodiles and elephants too, and it would be while hunting the latter that he would earn his spot on a Silliest Ways People Died video. In May of 2017, Boater, while leading a hunting group near Wangi National Park in Zimbabwe, happened upon a herd of breeding elephants. However, according to South Africa's News 24, when 3 of the elephants charged them, the group opened fire. It was then that a 4th elephant caught them by surprise. After ramming them, according to the same article, a group member fatally shot the elephant, which then collapsed on top of Boater and unceremoniously crushed him to death. This quick and final story is purely honorary, as the main character managed to walk away relatively unharmed after doing something quite silly. However, it's probably one of the most iconically Australian ways not to die. Now, us New Zealanders love our Aussie brothers. If we're going on holiday, chances are it's to Australia. The Aussies are a tough bunch, but they've got their own ways of doing things, and you can't help but love it. At around 2:30 AM on Sunday the 19th of March 2017, 18-year-old Lee DePowell was hanging with friends on a wharf on the Innisfail Esplanade on the Johnston River in the far north of Queensland, Australia. The Johnston River is home to a large population of both salt and freshwater crocodiles, and swimming is not recommended. Regardless, Lee bragged to his mates that he could enter the water, swim to the middle, and come back. His friend, 24-year-old Sophie Patterson, told Aussie media they thought he was joking and wouldn't do it. However, joking he was not. In one of the most Australian things, he jumped in the water where he was swiftly attacked by a crocodile, only to be released moments later after he punched it in the face. Suffering severe injuries to his arm, he was rushed to hospital where he underwent surgery to save it. After receiving some newfound fame in the aftermath of the incident, he appeared in several interviews, some of which were reported to have paid him around 20,000 Australian dollars.
Lee, good morning to you, my man.
Good morning, Carl.
Looks like you're out of hospital, but you still got a broken arm, but you look pretty good.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Dared to jump in, so I jumped in. Swam around to the stairs to hop out. Croc then grabbed me there on the left arm, took me underneath the water, shook its head a bit, and I managed to get a good punch in on its eye.
Yeah.
And then it let go and I swam back to the stairs.
Crocs around. I know you've been doing it your whole life, but knowing there are crocs around, why would you do it?
Oh, full of beautiful backpacker.
Okay,
Tell us about that.
Yeah, tell us about the backpacker. Why is she so special?
She's not really just another girl, but she's really good looking and been kind to me the night before.
Yeah.
Smooth talker.
What's her name, the backpacker's name, who you're emotionally attached to?
Sometimes.
Hopefully.
Not mate.
Huh? Oh,
Sophie.
Sophie.
Patterson.
And where's Sophie from?
England.
However, unfortunately, this wasn't where the story ended. Shortly after, according to an ABC Australia article, Lee was sentenced to 3 months in prison after going on what his lawyer described as an illicit substance-filled binge, where he assaulted 2 police officers and tried to steal a car. That's all for today's video. If you know of a Darwinian tale that needs telling, comment below and help keep the series alive. I've featured several suggestions already. If you enjoyed today's video, I'd love it if you subscribed and joined me for the next one. To watch another of my Darwin Awards, click a link on screen. And as always, thanks for watching.